Hello and welcome to another edition of Luminar Coffee Break. I'm your host, Vanelli. Now, joining me today is my co-host, Angela Andrieux. Hello, Angela.
Hey, Vanelli. Happy Friday.
Happy Friday. How's everything going?
Going well. Going well. Ready for the weekend, but it's been a good week.
Well, that's awesome. So, Angela, what's on our agenda for today?
So today is our Friday weekly wrap up where we talk about the topics that we covered earlier in the week. For me, that is copying and pasting masks for faster selective edits and using radial masks to target different areas of your image for selective edits. And Vanelli is going to be covering high key portraiture, how to capture and edit it, and also how to do creative cropping on portraits. Lots of great stuff this week.
Hey, well, that sounds great. Now, hey, how about you get us going right away?
All right, let's do it. All right. Okay, cool. So you guys are seeing my screen. I've got Luminar AI up on the screen, and this is the photo that we edited on Tuesday. It's a really cool portrait, very urban landscape. Let's go ahead and take a look at the before image here. You can see that it's a great portrait, but the sky was flat and it just lacked a little bit of punch. Also there in our foreground, we had our subject was kind of competing with those really bright rocks. So our eyes tend to go to the lightest part of a photo. So I wanted to tone those down to really draw us into our subject. So here's what I came up with. I did this with a combination of starting with a template. I did a quick sky replacement and did a little bit of defocus on that to blend it in, and then use selective edits with my brush to isolate the subject from the rest of the image so I can make a few different edits. So let me go ahead and do a quick walkthrough here for you. First thing we did, we went to our templates. We chose the sunshine template. So let me go ahead and pop back here. And I believe this was under the big screen category. And there it is right there, sunshine. So that's the one I used initially for this image. And then we went over into the edit tab. We did a quick crop to cut off some distractions on the side. So let's go ahead and just take a quick look at what we did for crop. You'll see that I cropped off a significant portion of the image. There was some area here in the foreground that was really unnecessary to the story. Plus there was some heavy machinery over here on the right that I wanted to get rid of. And this just felt like a much better, cleaner crop for this photo. So we went ahead and did that. And we added some structure overall. Now, this is where we started using our mask. I wanted to isolate our subject from the structure. I didn't want to add structure to him. Now, our structure AI tool is human aware in that it will not affect skin tones or affect them very, very mildly. But in this case, I didn't want any structure hitting my subject, so I painted a mask so everything around him was affected and he was protected. So let's go ahead and take a look at that really quick. I clicked onto my mask icon, then onto the ellipses button, and we can say show mask. And this will show us exactly where we painted. You can see that I've protected our subject. Everything around him has the red overlay. So that's where that structure is going to be having an effect. Everything that's not painted with the red overlay is protected. So I then copied this mask by going to the ellipses and then down to copy. And I was able to use that on other tools and on our local masks as well. So I went over to our local masking and we added a basic local mask. And you do that by going to add and basic. So in this instance, I wanted to darken down those rocks in the foreground. But again, I wanted to protect my subject. So I used my masking brush to remove the mask from the top here. You can see that I missed a little bit here at the very top. I can fix that right now and go here to my erase and just get that out of there. So you can paste a mask and then paint out different areas to modify it. So in this instance, I wanted to keep the cutout around my subject and have that mask only affect the rocks. So I was able to copy that and use it again, modify it for this particular use, and get another use out of it without having to get in there and do such tight brush work. So let me go ahead and turn off that mask overlay so you can see the finished result there. You'll see that just darkened up those rocks in the foreground. There's the before and the after. That turned back on. There we go. All right, and our overall before and after. So it made a huge change with a few small adjustments. First with that template to get us a good starting point, a good crop and composition. Adding some structure to bring out some details here in the background. I did pop in a new sky. Sky replacement is kind of a bigger topic for another episode, but I did use a new sky just to give a little bit more detail up there and darken down those rocks. So hopefully that's a good overview of how to copy and paste masks and gets you started on some faster selective edits. What do you think, Vanelli?
Awesome. Hey, that was a great job, Andrew. I liked how you did that. I like how you split it and just efficiency. You saved
Yes,
a lot of time with that. All right, well, let me
definitely.
dive into mine. So mine is a high key shot. Now, what is a high key? A high key is typically when the background is just completely blown out and the light wraps around the subject. Nice. Now, this shot was actually done in the studio. You actually do a high key outdoors also. Here in Florida, it's real easy. Because we have such beautiful sunlight, and you put the person's back up against the sun, and then that light just wraps around them beautifully. Now, for this shot, Angela, I used what's called a last light high key. That's right here. Now, you can see it's pretty expensive. 39 bucks. If you're not shooting portraits on a regular basis, I mean, that's kind of a lot of money to spend. So what you could do is a couple different things. One is you could take, let's say, a 3 foot by 4 foot huge softbox and put that behind the subject. Or you can, with a white background, flood the light, or flood the background with as much light as you can, and that's going to turn it completely pure white and bounce some of that light back onto the subject. So there are a couple things you can do to get that look. But with that high key, notice right here, you are going to get some blown out, like strands of hair and stuff like that. And that's part of the high key look. So with this, I mean, it's fine. I'm going to come over here and actually created a high key look for us. Let's see. And I called it, here it is. Here's Ashley High Key. Here's High Key. Let's see which one I picked. Okay, here we go. So that was the one I shot, or I used. Here's before. Here's after. So let me show you what I did under the edit tool, or panel. Number one was, we're going to come down here and, let's see, where am I? Right here. So look at glow. By adding some glow to this, I'm going to turn it off. Look at that. And then turn it back on again. That glow helps us with that wrap. Now, I could have used the actual high key. Look, let's see, I'm sorry, I gotta move my up so I have a major glare coming in onto my computer here. All right.
Well, while you're looking for that, I'll answer a question that I see popped up in the chat. John Marks is saying that he's having problems with adding a basic local mask. Sometimes it won't add one until he quits Luminar AI and restarts it and tries again. So I'm going to venture out and say that might be a resource issue on your computer. It might be that you're working with super high megapixel images. It might be, there's a handful of different things that could be going on. What I would do is encourage you to reach out to our support team at support@skylum.com. Send them an email. If you can send them a screen recording of it actually happening, any crash reports, anything like that, the exact steps that lead to the issue, that will help them diagnose the issue if they can replicate it. And then they can give you some instruction on how to correct it and how to move forward. So hopefully that'll get you back up and running, John.
Awesome. Thanks, Angela. All right, so here I am with the high key is under, of course, portrait. And I could use high key in this case here. And let's see what it's, I'm going to go overboard. Notice, Angela, with high key, look what it's doing. It's muting the colors and it's wrapping around her. I'm going to turn that off for now because I did use face lighting under here to bring out her face more. Look at that. So one of the issues with high key is you have to light the front. Oh, right about there. You have to light the front. So notice I have two strip boxes coming in here like this, And that's what's giving me that look on top of Ashley. So if I didn't do that, she'd come out as a silhouette. So here is where I got the extra light coming onto her. This overall image I shot was underexposed by almost a full stop, or I'm sorry, about a third of a stop. Thank God I have Luminar, because I was able to bring back some of the light onto her face. So here it is before, which is an okay image, after. All right? So there you go, Angela.
That's a beautiful, beautiful photo. And Pat actually asked, can you define high key and low key?
Yes. Okay, so here we are with high key and low key. Now, typically, when we're talking about a high key photo, it's like what I just showed you here. Let me pull that down. A high key is where the backlight is so bright that it's wrapping around the subject. It's more for fashion. There's a lot of light into the scene. A low key is the opposite. It's more of the dark and moody type lighting. Our mystical tool is phenomenal for low key lighting. That's soft. I don't want to say, well, it's kind of like a soft, moody type low is low key.
Do you want to roll right into your second edit and show us, because I think your second demo was actually a low key image, correct?
Yes. Yep. So let's.
Yeah, why don't you go ahead and roll into that and just kind of follow up so Pat can get the contrast there.
And this is creative cropping. So Pat, notice these images here. You see how it's on a dark background, and she has like a little glowing effect as soon as it's done. You'll see up here rendering. Here it is. You see how it's rendering right in here. All right. And here's one of the other images that we dealt with. So what we're going to work with is cropping. So I'm going to take this shot here. That's an NEF file. And there we go. Adjustment. Ready for this? Revert to original. Let's give it a second. So this is the original image. Actually, let me go to edit. History, and come all the way down. This is interesting. Both of these images here, Angela, there we go. So both of those were the JPEG. Yeah. So here's the image itself. I mean, and I get so tired of saying this all week. I didn't do a great job on this photo shoot. I was exhausted. I know there's a lot of excuses. There's reasons are when things, you tried everything you could, you just couldn't avoid it. Excuses is, you know what, it's just that. You could have done something. With this shot here, I had way too many people on set. We were trying to accomplish too much in a short period of time. I was exhausted. I'll be the first to admit. I didn't set this up on the computer like I should. Usually I tether it, take a picture, shows up on the computer, boom, we're ready to go. Had I have done that, I'd have realized, look at this down here. Down here is way too bright. Up here, not as bright. Her hand positioning. We call that, Angela, the Malocchi. So in the Italian terms, that's called a Malocchi. The evil eye, and that's a bad thing. So I actually looked at this image, and believe it or not, it was a throwaway shot. Ashley loved it. I love her expression. I love the rose. So now I have to resort to trying to repair the image. So I'm going to come back over to edit. And here's where I think you're going to really like this, Angela, and I stress this to everyone. What I love about Luminar, it doesn't matter the order you go in. I can either crop the image right now and begin my edits, or I can begin my edits and then crop the image. If this were Photoshop, here's where it's very important to understand this. We're working with non-destructive editing in Luminar. If this were Photoshop, and let's say I come in and I crop the image. So I'm going to come in, I'll flip it, I crop it, and what I'm trying to do here, by the way, is get rid of that hand as much as I can. The rule's a third. I got this here. I don't have a problem with cutting the head off a bit. To me, it's an artistic type of crop. Here we go, right about there. It's an artistic type of crop. I'll hit enter. It either works or it doesn't work. If you cut off too little, then it looks like you made a mistake. You cut off too much, it doesn't have a forehead. All right, so let's say we do this, and I come to template. Thank God I already created a template for this, and I believe I called it romantic mystery. Boom, there we are. Now, we're done. Not that Angela is bad, but pretend Angela is the art director. And she comes in and says, Vanelli, what the heck were you thinking? You cropped her head off. It looks horrible. That's just, not that all art directors talk like that. That's disgusting. I hate it. I can't stand it. You know, you look like a rookie. Fix that crop. If this were Photoshop, I'd have to start all over again because I already cropped it. And I have to recrop it. Now that's if, I take it back, if in Photoshop you tell it not to delete, if you tell it not to delete the crop or the stuff around the crop, that's one thing. But if you did tell it to delete it, delete the pixels, then you have to start over again. So here, edit, I come back up to the crop tool, boom, look at that. I give her what she wants. Tell her that's not what she needs. No. So from here, I can crop it like this. And the look that I just created is already there. However, me personally, I'm going to come back to the tools. I like the crop. Sorry, Angela. There. I like the crop.
You throw me under the bus, and I like the original crop first, but you know, whatever.
So I'm gonna go back. Here we are. Now, let me hide myself for a moment. There we go. So that's a creative crop. Yeah, we're still dealing with this mess down here. So a couple things I can do, and I mentioned this before. I'm gonna try to erase it. So I'm going to come up here to the erase tool. Now, there's not a whole lot that, when I erase this, it's either going to look really good or really bad. Chances are it's going to look really bad because there's not a whole lot of stuff I can use around it. But if I hide it in the shadows, then I can do whatever I want from here. So I'm gonna crop it. And once I get the crop, let's see, it's almost there. Hide me. There we go. All right, we got rid of the finger. Now I'm gonna have to come over to the local mask, add a new one, basic, and I want to take the exposure. Now all I care about is this right here. I'm going to take that exposure, bring it way down, right about there. Good. And now I'm going to come over to the gradient mask and draw from the bottom up. There we go. And you see what that's doing? So that's hiding my imperfection. And I'm going to add another basic brush. This time, again, I'm focusing just on the flower. With the shadows, look at that. I brought the shadows out. And paint at, let's say, 100% opacity. Now from here, what I'm using my drawing tablet. On the surface. And I'm just going to paint the mask right in here. So I went from global edit to a local edit. And there we have it. That's a little harsh. Let me bring it back just a little bit, right about there. All right, and she is looking a little gray, so I would actually come back and just add a little more color to the overall image. Let's see, light, temperature up. There we go, and there we have it, Angela. So we have before, after. So with the creative crop, the crop itself did a great job at drawing the attention to Ashley. The remaining part of the edit, darkening the back of the hand, making the flower a little bit more visible, and then focusing on her beautiful eyes, that right there made the overall crop more accessible to the image itself. All right?
It's a beautiful, beautiful photo. And you said it's a throwaway, but I like the original too. I thought it was really pretty. It had a very romantic look to it. I like it.
Ashley's absolutely phenomenal. There's a book that Jay Maisel wrote that talked about light, color, and gesture. Gesture and those little things that she's... Now this I just wish she didn't do. I wish she came in and like whatever... Okay, look at me, 260 pounds, trying to show you how to look romantic. So if when you're holding, let's say, a flower or something delicate, we teach very lightly with the fingers. You hold it here instead of grabbing it like this. And that's typical. Now look what happens to my fingers. It looks like I lost my fingers. So a nice gradual look like this. All right.
Perfect. Well, we had another question from Julie in the chat, and she says, when you do high key, do you do white balance on your subject or on the light source?
Subject. And the reason for that is you want the tones of the subject's skin to come out. And again, in this shoot I wish I could have found it for you, is we have what's called a white balance card, and they hold the card up, take the picture. Now we take that eyedropper tool, beep, and get a reference. It doesn't mean you click on it and, oh my Lord, look how beautiful everything is. It gives you a reference. It's saying, hey, this is supposed to be pure white. Click.
Right.
Do you like it? It's okay. Now adjust the temperature. It's more for the tint. It's more for the tint. And I think I showed you that little trick. Let me pull this up, Angela.
Okay.
Yeah, I think I showed you that trick before. When you don't have a white balance card, if you click the eyedropper tool and click right on the eye itself, the white of the eye, notice it's shifted slightly. And then from here, that took care of the tint. There we go. I'm going to bring that out just a little to give me more of that color. All right.
Beautiful. Great tip.
All right, Angela, what do you have for us?
All right. So the second image we worked on this week was relating to radial masks and how to use a big, soft radial mask to target different areas of your image. For this photo we have on the screen, we used 3 different radial masks to target, oops, let me get rid of that, to target the cabin here and to target each of these hillsides. So let me go ahead and we started with a template, which, let's see here, we used Forest Stream, which was, let's go back here. I believe that was under Easy Landscapes. There it is, Forest Stream. That was our starting point. And that was a little bit too bright, but it did bring out some really nice detail in those mountains. What I wanted to do from there was to tone down the green, to add a little bit more detail, and to darken up these hillsides behind it to add some visual separation. We really want the eye to go to this cabin, but we also want the eye to be able to travel around the rest of the image and to really show that depth. So from there, I went over to edit, and we went over into our local mask, and you see I have several different local masks here. So let me go here to the first one. This is where we focused in on the cabin. So I'll go to my ellipses here. We'll say show mask, and you can see exactly what I masked there. You can see I create a small radial mask just around the cabin, and I opened up the shadows and the exposure a little bit just to add a little bit of light to that spot. And like I mentioned earlier, I wants to travel to the lightest, brightest part of an image. So when we have a very dark subject like this dark little cabin, we needed to lighten it up to draw the eye to that spot. So from there, you go ahead and turn off that mask. I'm going to go ahead and click on hide mask. I went to my second local mask and I created another radial mask. So let's go ahead and show mask on this one. And you'll see that I made a big soft mask covering this hillside on the right. And I pulled the exposure down on that just to create a little bit of visual separation. I'm going to go ahead and hit the / key on my keyboard to turn off that mask overlay. And we can turn this off and then back on again to see how that creates a little bit of distance between the foreground and the background. I did the same thing with this next hillside with my next mask. I can turn that off and then back on again. And you can see what that covered. If I go here to show mask and take a look at what that mask overlay was covering. Again, I just pulled down the exposure so ever so slightly to this area over here. And then finally, after I did those things, I went to my vignette. I added a nice big soft vignette, which darkened all of my edges. Let's go back over to our tools. I'll show you what that looked like. So here in our vignette tool, I can turn that off and back on. So again, I used that inner light and the darkening of the edges to further draw our eye to that cabin. Now, the last thing I did was I had felt that the foreground here with just the vignette, it darkened up this foreground a little bit too much. And I wanted to create a path that led us into the cabin. So I went back to my local masking. In this final local mask, I used my brush. Let me go ahead and just show you this mask overlay to paint in a little bit of light and saturation just over that foreground at a very low opacity, just to kind of guide you into the cabin. And there's some really lovely little wildflowers there in the foreground. So I wanted to bring that out and kind of give your eye a direction to go, and it leads you right in. What do you think about that, Vanelli?
Oh my God, that's awesome. Awesome, great job. By the way, notice I'm a little bit higher, Angela. While we were talking, your I'm going to say your Piper, my little kitten, I don't know what she did with the height of this. She jumped on something, and I started going lower and lower. Oh my Lord! I don't know if you saw me going down in the video. Anyways, but that came out good. I love how you're viewing, taking the viewer on a ride, and you're showing them where you want them to go. And by the way, what I didn't show, because let me pull up the comments. Pat says, in Photoshop, can you choose not to discard the crop pixels? Yes, that's true, because you know what I forgot? Angela, I didn't do the second half. The second half of that tutorial is what happens when you don't have enough pixels, or enough canvas in the image. So here's the final shot of Ashley. I love this shot of her. Again, believe it or not, this was a throwaway shot. Here it is. So this is the original image. And the problem was I photographed this, Angela, as a portrait instead of as a landscape. So, if I crop it, I can crop it right about like this, but I'm not getting the width that I wanted. And what's phenomenal about Luminar is also kind of a little Achilles. It's not a graphics program. It's meant for photographers to get incredible results in record time. So it's not adding pixels to this image. So when I use the crop tool, it's not a graphics program to where if I flop it like this, here's how I want it. Oh, but wait, I want this more over here. Well, notice I can't go any further because that's not the tool of Luminar. It's not meant to be a graphics program. So instead, that's when we rely on our friend Photoshop. What are some of the other free ones? Well, Photoshop's not free. GIMP, yeah,
There's Affinity, also not
Affinity.
free, but less expensive than Photoshop. And it's, I think, really a single purchase. And then there's those out there that use GIMP and a handful of others that are free and low cost.
Gotcha. Okay, so in this case here, let me go back and I want to reset it. So, and this will help answer a question for Pat also. Here we go. There. Let me get back to this shot here. All right. So with this shot right here, I'll show you how we get that crop. So I'm going to right click, go to folder in library. Nope. I want to show in Explorer or show in Finder. All right, so here's the image. Right click on it and open with Photoshop. I feel much higher now, Angela. So now that I'm inside Photoshop, first thing I need to do is unlock the background layer. Here's that crop tool that we talked about. Now, was it Pat? Did we ask for? Yes, Pat. So Pat, up here, you see where it says delete crop pixels. You have a choice of either accepting that or not accepting it. If you don't accept it, if you say, hey, don't delete those crop pixels, leave it. Now when I expand or do all this interesting stuff to the image itself, those pixels go along with it. And the only downfall with that is sometimes when you do smart objects or extensive editing, those hidden pixels can affect your image. So a lot of times people will come in and select the delete crop pixels. Now what I'm going to do is just come over here and I expand it out. Here is the checkered border. We've talked about this before. At this point, if I select content aware here, we found it didn't give us a good result. So I'm just going to hit enter. Now I have the width that I want. Selection tool. Now I'm going to select a little bit of the layer here, but all of the area I want to replace. Using keyboard shortcut Shift, Backspace, now I'm going to select Content Aware and select OK. And in a second, Photoshop does its thing. In a few seconds, it does its thing. I was trying to time it. There we go. And deselect. Now I have the crop. Notice those part of her arm. You really can't see it too much, but it's here. So that's where you come in and select the eyedrop tool, paint, and I'm at a very low opacity. Let me bring it up just a little bit. And all I'm really trying to do is bring some of that in here. There we go. So now I have the width of what I'm trying to deal with. Now, if I do the crop from here, like I mentioned, and then bring it back into Luminar, the issue we're going to run into is what if that mean art director, not you, Angela, but your twin evil sister, that mean art director wants that crop to be different, then I'm stuck. So you would save it, and once you save it, it automatically comes back into Luminar, and then from here, it's going to take a little while. It's going to do its thing. You'll see the Luminar blue. There we go. It does its thing, and there we are. All right. There you go, Angela.
Awesome. Yeah, I mean, that's one of those things where, if you need to expand your canvas, Photoshop is a great tool to have in your toolbox, or if Affinity or something like that. And there's other ones out there that are less expensive. Those are just the ones that are most often used. So when you need to expand the canvas and things like that, it's helpful.
Exactly. Here comes a quick question. Sean says, can you guys upload these photos so we can practice editing those on the same photos? Now, the only problem with that, well, there's a couple problems. One, the other images you were working on, Angela, we have the rights to use them ourselves because it's part of our ambassadors, but we're not allowed to give those out because they're copyrighted for those people. This particular image is mine. I did the model release forms for her. I have the release form, but for me to give them out to other people, it's a little complicated. Not to mention the fact, the really cool thing about this, I don't want it just to work for my image. I want it to work for your images. You know, how many times have you seen that, Angela? You know, you go to a trade show and they show you this killer plugin. You're like, oh my God, that's so cool. You go home and you try it and you're like, huh, why is it not working for me? It's working for you. It works for that particular image, but not mine. So Shane, we're hoping these will work for all your images, not just ours. So the best thing to do is you can go to Unsplash if you want to.
Yeah, I was just going to mention that as well.
Yeah, Adobe Stock. With Adobe Stock, unless you have a membership to it, you can still download them to where they plaster all over them, you know, copyrighted Adobe Stock. But you can use if you want to practice, Shane, on those. You just can't show them.
I would say use Unsplash. You just have to give, I believe, credit to whoever the maker is. But those images are free to use, and you can play with those, find something similar to this, and then, you know, play with them and get a feel before you go out in the field and start shooting your own if that's what you need to do.
You know I'm going to call you out on it, Angela. How's your little cat doing there, Angela?
Were you able to see him? I was trying to keep him out of the picture.
Yeah, no, I'm going to call you out on no because we haven't had it's working from home. You know, the broadcasting from home. Yeah, your pets have a tendency of wanting to be a ham and getting in the shot. You can't see, but Piper is off. I had to bring a table in here for her to sit on. So when I'm working, she's off to my left, and she's like, okay, my table, your desk, I won't mess with it. So.
Well, that's a good cat. See, my cats just think that they own everything in here.
You got it.
So.
But Shane, just so you know, you're not alone. Our good friend Jim Nix is not a portrait photographer, so he'll reach out and say, hey, Vanelli, you know, I need to do some of these tutorials. Do you mind if I borrow any of your images? He, along with Rich Harrington, they have access to any of my portraits that they need. It's an open, and so do you, Angela. You have open access to any of those. So, yeah, Shane, those, yeah, you're right. So Shane brought up a good example. Were those photos shot in RAW? Yes, mine were shot in RAW. The only issue, though, when you're dealing with Unsplash, if you're dealing with Unsplash, the images are not in RAW. You know, they're JPEGs. So the difference is you're not going to be able to pull out as much. So, yeah, so you're not able to pull out as much.
Exactly.
Right.
Now, we did have one more question from Julie in the chat asking about the opacity with the masks. So yes, if you have a higher opacity with your brush or your gradient or radial mask, that's going to put more material, so to speak, down on the canvas. So if you have your settings to bring the exposure up and you have that opacity set to 100, it's going to put that exposure there with a very heavy hand. If you want to do it lightly and maybe do a few brush strokes to just kind of layer it up, you can use a lower opacity.
Well, that's awesome. All right, Angela. What I'm pulling up real quick is, there we go. Let me share my screen with everyone. So here, there we go. Here are some Skylum resources. And for Shane, do me a favor, if you need some of these raw photos to experiment with, shoot me an email. Let me see if I have my, yep, here it is. Vanelli@skylum.com. And Angela is Angela@Skylum.com.
Yes.
So Vanelli@Skylum.com. Shoot me a message and I'll let you borrow, borrow some of the raw images if you want to practice with it. So here are some Skylum resources. Skylum.com, of course. Support now, right, Angela? We can't stress this enough. Support is when it does not work. Program doesn't work, get old support.
Yeah, if you're having really bad crash, if you're having something crash, if you're having really bad lags, if a tool's not working the way you think it's supposed to, support at skylum.com. Our tech team is amazing and they're very helpful. And they typically get a reply out to you within 24 hours. So unless it's right around the time of like a new release just came out or something like that, it's the turnaround's usually pretty fast.
Yeah, so get a hold of Angela while I swap your screen. The thing blurry again on your end.
Oh my!
I'll fix that. Yep, we'll fix that in a minute. Yeah, so get a hold of them when it doesn't work. Get a hold of us when you want to learn something, and that's where you go to the manual. Please read the. And by the way, Angela, that got jacked up like almost over 2,000. A little over 2,000 extra people read the manual, and so I'm so excited. I saw the stats on that. Of course, because you own Luminar, you're part of the Insider program. We absolutely love our YouTube channel here, but we don't have the interaction that we do with our Insiders program, to where it's a Zoom meeting to where we can see everyone's face and you can interact with us and talk to us back and forth. Right?
Yeah, the cool thing is we do these topics on Insiders via Zoom a week earlier than we do them here on YouTube. And it's like a regular Zoom meeting. You can open up your mic, you can have your webcam on, we can have a conversation. And our group there is so much fun. So that's Monday through Friday at 10 a.m. Pacific. And if you're a member of Insiders and you own Luminar AI, you can join us for that as well. So we'd love to see you there.
Good, and you gloss over that we have fun. Yes, we have lots of fun.
We have lots of fun.
So it's
a very vibrant group.
Yeah, so it's a lot like we're in a real coffee shop, and oh my God, I sound like a New Yorker when I say coffee. We're in a coffee shop, and you guys are just sitting around with us, and you're asking a bunch of questions. We're sharing tips. We have people from England, Japan, Australia, here in the States. So
Hawaii, all over the place.
So you're more than welcome, and not to mention the fact there's a ton of extra resources over there. So if you run into any issues, like Shane did say, I get a blank screen sometimes, or a black screen sometimes. You'd have to be a little bit more elaborate with that. When do you get the black screen? Is it when you're editing? When is that happening? You can always shoot us an email, and we can forward that off to you. But if this were the Insider program, you're able to ask that, and sometimes share your screen, and we can actually see it from there.
Right. So, I mean, if you're getting a black screen, my first thought is that maybe you're trying to load up a raw file type that's not supported, but our support team can find that out for you for sure. And then I see also John's asking about using a tablet and pen pressure. That is one of those little quirks that pen pressure sensitivity in Luminar AI is available on Mac, but not on Windows at this time.
So, and for us Windows people, please don't sit there and go, oh my God, we don't have it. Most of you don't have a pressure-sensitive tablet. So it doesn't matter. I do, and I got to tell you, Dima, our co-founder and the brains behind Luminar, you don't need this, he says. So we were at a convention in DC. They saw me doing the light, painting color into a subject's eyes, because I wanted to change the color. And you can tell, and all they do is this. These engineers are so intelligent. They go, huh, okay. And that's all they do. You don't hear anything from them again. And then all of a sudden, Iris AI comes out, and it's a slider. And boom, the eyes are automatically fixed. So that's why I absolutely love our engineers. So John Marks.
Yep.
John, I absolutely do, yes. So John does have pressure sensitive. Awesome. And John, I wonder, are you using Windows or Mac? If you're using Mac, you should be really excited. If you're using Windows, I apologize.
I will say this, when I do use my Wacom in Luminar AI, I am on a Mac. A lot of times I turn that off because I'm so used to working with my mouse and having a consistent, what that pen pressure does is it varies the opacity, it varies the amount of pigment that you're throwing out there. I'm so used to the consistency of using the mouse that when I jump over to my Wacom, sometimes it's a little bit more awkward with that pen pressure sensitivity. I will turn it off and just use it as a pointer and paint that way, because sometimes that feels more comfortable. So don't feel like you're missing out on anything huge. It is a nice little feature to have, but it's not a deal breaker for me.
Yeah, but John, if you're an artist, I take it you are. Not Windows, sorry, John. Yeah, John. So I take it you are one of those artists that the punch. I mean, I've watched them do it, which is amazing. I've owned Wacom tablets. Oh my God, for so many years, and I felt so guilty that I never really could do the pressure sensitive. I'm a photographer first, and then graphic artist. But I don't want to call myself a graphic artist because Burt Monroy to me is a graphic artist. I know how to manipulate pixels. I'm a pixel pusher. That I can do. But people like John who rely on that pressure sensitivity, hats off to you guys. It's amazing. But as of now, Mac, I know it's a Windows, right? It's a part of the system. Just like with Photoshop, for example, Photoshop, if you use it as a plugin, you can't crop your image. Well, that's not our fault. That's a requirement of Photoshop. It says, hey, plugins, you want to use me as a host? You can't crop your images because the moment that image comes back to Photoshop, it wants the exact same dimension. So there are certain limitations on that. All right?
Sure.
Well, this was great. This is almost like Insiders, Angela. We almost got real time.
Yeah, this is great. We had some awesome questions and interaction today. I love it. That makes this so much more fun.
Awesome. Well, guys, thank you so much for joining us. Angela, thank you. And we'll see the rest of you at the next coffee break.
Have a good weekend, everyone.